What's up, you warriors, jarls, and berserkers? This is take 2 because I did not have the microphone plugged in. Alright. What to look for when you are selecting your bug out location, your retreat, your homestead. What to look for in that. Some of you asked about that. Come out of her, my people. Okay, that's part of it. Well, then you have to get somewhere and then presumably live, right? And so there is a lot of considerations that go into it. I think the first thing I would decide on, and some of what I'm going to talk about is process, but it touches on what do you need, and we'll get to what I think you need. And as long as I'm on that, several of you are already living on your retreat or bug out land or your homestead or that kind of thing. And I value your comments, even if they disagree with me, because it is your own reality and you have lived it. And so you are worthy of speaking your piece. So please feel free to chip in. First thing I think you should do is decide what region you want to live in. You know, do you want to live in Southern Appalachia? Do you want to live in the Redoubt? Do you want to live in the Ozarks? Do you want to live on the Great Plains? Do you want to live in the Pacific Northwest? Pick a region. If you're from England or whatever, Germany, Australia, I'd reckon the same thing. Pick a region. If you've decided you're going to move to a different country, then decide on the country and then decide on the region, right, of that country. So pick a region where you want to live. One thing SK and I decided on pretty early was we didn't want it to be too cold. Harsh cold winters as we get older did not appeal to us. Ice, and it takes more fuel and more logistics, and you know our northern tier gets kill you cold. I have found that, and perhaps it's because I spent a lot of my youth growing up in Southeast Asia, but it's easier for a body to deal with heat than it is with cold, especially when systems are not working correctly. So, you know, decide on your region. It is important that you have access to water. I think a desert is right out. I find deserts beautiful, but there's no water there, yo. And that water, you know, people say, oh, it has to have a live creek or a live river, living water on it. Yeah, that sounds great if you have money. I didn't have that much money, and so we have a creek. It flows half the time, but we have a lot of rain. It's raining right now. We catch all our water. It's not a problem. There's enough inches per year. I have no idea what they are, but there's enough, and our wells don't have to go super deep, you know, for us to get water out of the ground. And so water is important when you're talking about setting up a homestead. And I would put that pretty high on the list of priorities. There are places around here where they've had to drill thousands of feet to get water. So one thing you want to do when you start narrowing down the piece of land you want is to talk to the neighbors or the people in that area and just ask them, you know, how deep's your well? Assuming you want a well, but if you're on a homestead and we're talking about, you know, self-sufficiency, you want to produce your own water. So, there you go. Even if you can get county water, which if I could get it, I probably would, you still need to have your own source of water for when everything goes, right? Growing season, getting back to winter. I think you need to have a good growing season, the ability to grow your own vegetables and trees, you know, fruit and stuff like that. Up on our northern tier, you know, up there, the growing season's short, and you know, last frost date, first frost date, it's very short. Whereas here, we could pretty much grow all year round. I like that. Hawaii, you can grow all year round in Hawaii. It has its downsides in Hawaii. But, fly, get thee behind me. So water, climate, region, the ability to produce food, to grow food. All right, let's start getting a little bit more specific. I really like the idea of an area without building codes. Without building codes. Where I live, there's no building codes. I could go build the Eiffel Tower, or I could build a little shanty and nobody cares. It just doesn't matter. I like that. You can build your own stuff to whatever code you want. You should be buying enough land for your place that you don't care what your neighbors are doing. They want to live in a tar paper shack? Good on them. But building codes, that's just more government in your business coming to check on you, fees for inspections, and no, you can't do that. And it's so a place with no building codes, I think, is important. A place with a low, did I say this already? I did in the first video. Kind of the first thing when you're picking your region, low population density. You want a place that's rural. Rural, it's a hard word for me to say. You don't want a whole lot of people around. The less people per square mile, the better for you. The less people per square mile, the less crime, the less building codes and things like that, laws. Of course, I would never consider living on a place with a homeowners association or anything like that. Wouldn't even consider it. I'd walk. So there's that. Access to water, the ability to raise animals. You're going to want animals unless you're a vegetarian, and if you're a vegetarian, you're going to need a more complicated garden than I can advise you on. But the ability to raise animals on your homestead, I think an abundance of natural resources. Example, in this area, and in many others, we have timber for days. I will never have to cut down a tree for firewood. We have enough trees just dying, falling over, standing dead that I can just selectively pick my trees. Now, if we moved, 100 people here, then we'd have to start thinking about that. There's a carrying capacity of the earth. But we have more wood than we could shake a stick at. We have a wood mill. We could make all the boards we wanted as long as we had, spare parts and gasoline. That kind of thing. But that's nice. Here, rocks could be a benefit. The rocks we have here are all basically two flat sides and then angles on these sides. They're perfect for building with. I want to build a little cabin, so, if I wanted to use them, I could. There are other natural resources depending on where you're going. But I wouldn't think you'd want a just clear piece of land that you can see from one end to the other. Those are some things to think about with your retreat or your homestead is tactical applications. Being in a rural area is a big one. That's getting you away from people. But then will you be able to put your house in such a way, site your house, that the whole world can't see it from the road kind of thing? And you don't need a huge piece of property to do that. It just needs to lay right. You need to put your driveway in correctly so that happens. But it's something to think about. Better to think about those tactical considerations now than after you've built the house and bad guys are roaming around, right? What else? Caves are a plus. I keep looking for a cave here. If I find one, I won't tell you about it, but we have not found one, and I've been on, I don't want to exaggerate, I've probably been on every 10 square feet of this place. I've never found a cave, which is too bad. But if I found a piece of property with a cave on it, I'd like that a lot, as long as the whole world didn't know about it. What else? What else do you need on your homestead? Enough land. You got to decide how much land you want, you desire. When SK and I started looking for our land, which ended up being this piece, I think our minimum was 20 acres. I think we said our minimum is 20 acres. I didn't want less than that. But you do you, boo. I mean, I'm not saying you can't. I think you could do it on 5. The right 5 acres, I think you could make a go of it for 1 or 2 families. You'd have to be super efficient with the land that you had, but I think you could do a lot. One could do a lot on 5 acres. Having it in a red state as opposed to a liberal state, good thing. I wouldn't move to Oregon or Washington or California on a bet. Wouldn't do it, because you're just going to, you see where that's going, and there's just going to be more and more problems and more infringement on your liberties and all those kinds of things. You might want to consider natural disasters or problems in your area: hurricanes, tornadoes, blizzards, crushing heat waves, droughts, that kind of thing? Are they prevalent in your area? And if so, what are you going to do about it? That kind of thing. What else? Again, it kind of goes back to region, but like-minded people. For example, the Ozarks have a lot of God-fearing people in them. Most people you run into probably go to church. Most. No one will bat an eye in this area. You saying, well, bless your heart, or, God bless you, or anything like that. No one will bat an eye at that. We like that. We're comfortable with that. You may not be. And so, it's something to consider. The culture of the area. Demographics probably are a thing, right? I mean, I'd love to think we can all just get along, but we don't necessarily all just get along. And so you might want to be, again, around your people. And again, it doesn't matter what I wish. If wishes were horses, beggars would ride. It matters what is. So there's that. I wouldn't want to live near the border, our southwest border. One, because it's mostly desert. And two, you've got this just huge influx of people coming across illegally. So they're already criminals. Yes, I said that. And the cartels are starting to exert more and more pressure down there. Not a good place to be, right? So you got to look at that. You got to look at crime statistics in the area, things like that. One thing I say when you're narrowing it down to a piece of land and you're thinking about putting an offer on this piece of land, go out of the land, turn right, turn right, turn right until you come all the way around and come back to that land. Just keep turning right on the roads and see what your neighbors are like. Do you want those people living? And maybe it's just be a quarter mile that way, but you didn't see it because you came in on the road this way. Are you happy with that? Can you live with that kind of thing? I would not care. I don't care overly much about how things look around me. We do have people that live in single wide trailers with blue plastic tarps over them to keep the weather out. Within a couple bow shots, probably. Definitely, if you do the right turn, right turn, right turn, go around the property out. Yep, that's here. I don't care. I don't have a mansion. And, if I could afford a mansion, I'd have a mansion. Yes, I would. I don't have one. If I could afford a mansion, I still wouldn't care what other people lived in. I don't plan on putting mine up on a hill where everybody can see it from the road. What else? Things to consider, but you're going to pay. It's your money. We live on a mountain. Actually, we live in the mountains. We'll just leave it at that. Don't need to get more specific. Not only is it rocky as heck, the terrain is relatively steep with relatively few flat places. That is a negative. It's a positive for price, but it's a negative. Growing food here takes more effort than growing food, say, in Kansas, right? Or than growing food than in other places right around here where they have pasture and it's flat and they're either in a creek or river bottom or they're, up on the top of a plateau. The Ozarks aren't really mountains anyway. The whole thing is a plateau. That's just, but so there are flat places, but again, you'll pay more for that. Access, ease of access, legal access to your property. We had somebody move here from Florida, and they bought property that had a deeded easement through a neighbor's property. It was a road. It was a gravel road, but it went right in front of his house. The deeded easement did. By law, that was their easement to their property. And that guy didn't like it. He didn't like them coming and going. He didn't like these highfalutin Yankees from Florida and dun-dun-dun-dun-dun. He just started being a pain in the neck to him. Is that going to be a problem for you? I offered this family several times, I will go with you and we will get on the property, no problem. I think they ended up selling that property because they were too afraid to deal with the landowner, and they didn't work out here at Shofar Mountain. Go figure. we attract alpha males and females here for the most part, and being afraid of your neighbor when you have a legal right to drive down the road doesn't go well. But it could be a problem, right? Do you want to inherit a problem? Probably not. When you look at the individual piece of property, make sure you get a good look at it. Know what your borders are. Know what the legal description is of the property. Make sure there is one. If there has not been a legal survey done in the last several years, have one done of the property you're buying. Yes, it's going to cost money. But don't just buy land saying, yeah, well, it goes down up to there. And then, you got to know what you're getting. And then you should probably walk the land before you buy it to make sure you don't have a Superfund cleanup site on it, right? That kind of thing. So the neighborhood, I think that's about it. I think that's all the big stuff right there. And if I didn't make a list ahead of time, I'm just talking off the top of my head. But if I forgot something, or if I didn't mention something that you think is important, those of you who actually live, or, even if you've been looking for land and so you've come up with some ideas, please feel free to talk about them down below. We all get better. And, if it can save one person some heartache by looking into something before they buy, that would be good, I think. Oh, I guess another thing is most of you won't be able to do this, and you won't do it. But I'll tell you anyway, for those of you who can, you might want to look at, I said tactical. I was talking about really about where you put your house and your barns and things like that for the immediate area. You might want to look, are you near a nuclear target? Are you near a militarily significant place? Are you right next to an interstate that somebody's going to try and control sometime and 5 miles out from it for a buffer? That kind of thing. Are you, you might want to make friends with the people in the county courthouse, find out, are there plans to develop your area? Is there plans to reroute that highway right past your property? That kind of thing. What are the plans for the area? Are they is the city next to you, down there going to go, whoop, you're now in city limits and everything that comes with it? Those are questions to ask too. All right, hey, I'm going to try and get this loaded before it gets dark. Let's see if we do that. I appreciate y'all. Come out and hurt my people, and maybe I'll see you out here.